Thank you. Now I would like to introduce to our presenter for the day, Rebecca Ronson. Hi, Rebecca. Rebecca leads on teacher education projects across India. She started her career as a teacher of English and has taught on 3 continents in a variety of contexts. Rebecca has a diploma in English language teaching and a master's degree in global challenges. She enjoys taking on learning challenges. Her current interest is in developing her knowledge of global issues such as inclusion and climate change, and translating that into practical resources for teachers. Thank you so much. Over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you very much, Emily. Before you go, can you just confirm that you can see my slide, my screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. Great, it's great to see so many of you here today. Thank you for joining us to discuss a topic which I think is really, really important and is actually very topical. Climate is always topical, but if you know why it might be particularly topical at the moment, please put in the chat box why you think it's particularly important this week to be talking about climate action. I'll come back to that in a moment. So if you think you know why this week is a particularly good week to be having this session, pop that in the chat box. So today I want to do a few things. I want to introduce you to some of the issues about climate change, and I'm sure many of you will be very familiar with them, but we'll go through some of the key issues involved in climate change. And I want to introduce you to some simple activities that you can incorporate into your own teaching. Most importantly, I want to guide you to really useful resources that can help you learn more about climate change and climate action, resources that can help you include this into your own teaching practice, and general resources that can help you improve your own knowledge and also improve your English language proficiency, because so many of them are in English. So on the previous slide, I asked why this week is such a good week to be talking about climate issues. And I can see that we've got one answer in the chat, COP. Exactly, so this week it is COP26. Global leaders are meeting in Rome and Glasgow in the UK, and they're talking about how we can put forward a plan to reduce carbon emissions to make sure that our planet doesn't go beyond the ceiling of an increased 1.5 degrees. So it's a good week to be talking about this, and hopefully you're all aware of some of the news that is going on about it. But our focus today is what can we do as teachers and trainers? How can we support students to increase their own understanding and to get engaged and take action? So I want you to get involved. I'm going to show you some photographs. In the chat, what can you see? Okay, what is in the picture? I'm going to show you 2 pictures here. Someone is saying I'm not audible. If someone could confirm that you can hear me, it's okay.
We can hear you, Rebecca.
If other people are, oh, no good job. Can't. Beach. The first picture is a beach. Anything in particular you notice about the beach? Trash, pollution, garbage, plastic waste, full of trash. Exactly. Is this a beach you would like to visit? Would you take your children to this beach? Yeah, okay, so I think we can agree that this is perhaps not the nicest beach in the world. There's a lot of rubbish there, a lot of trash, a lot of plastic. Someone has mentioned that the second picture might be barren land. Any more ideas for the second picture? Degraded land, exactly. Okay, so the second picture, narrow path, yeah. The clean road. It's different, interesting how different people have different interpretations. So someone is saying it's a clean road. There's a contrast between the dirty first picture and the clean second picture. Okay, so first one of a beach, second one of a path, narrow road. The key thing is dry land, barren land. Yeah, so I chose this image to represent drought, lack of water. So while the road is very clean, you can see that the plant life is struggling. There's no greenness. It's all struggling to get enough water. Second picture was first picture. Okay, that's a nice observation. Someone said the second picture of the dry path is of the first picture on the beach 60 years ago or something. Okay. Let's have it. Here's a couple more pictures. What can you see here? You might be able to use, if you're on a mobile device, you might be able to zoom in with your fingers. That may work, may not. Beautiful contrast to depict our greed. Nice phrasing. So the first picture, very good. Flooded area, flooded town. You can see all the houses and the municipal buildings surrounded by water. The river in the background has clearly overflowed. What about this picture? This is perhaps most the direct opposite of this. No, you're saying forest fire. Exactly. So forest fires are becoming more and more common, more frequent in countries like Australia, America, lots of countries in Europe. Two more. This one, someone said, so this one we've got green, we've got a clear path. Is this a nice picture or does this have any problems in the picture? Green forest, yeah. Nice to see some trees, nature. Okay, but deforestation. Yeah, the trees are being cut down. Logging, you can see that the trunks of the trees piled high. So logging going on, deforestation. It'd be nice if it was afforestation, where they're regrowing the forest, but I think this might be deforestation and logging. One last picture. This one is a bit more abstract, but I think it's very applicable to India. What do you think is this picture trying to depict, to show? The last of these pictures, what do you think this one is trying to show? Bright sun. Where is this picture? Could be global warming. Okay, so bright sun, city, urbanisation. Yeah, so urbanisation, global warming, inequality, nice. Sunny, too hot. Yeah, this one, it was hard for me to find a picture, but this is the idea of urban heat. So cities trap heat and they become hotter and hotter than the surrounding countrysides. So yeah, the greenhouse effect, also these answers are great. Greenhouse effect in general, rising temperatures, urbanisation, which leads to things like inequality. So there are lots of different issues that you could see in this photograph. Okay, so we've seen environmental issues like pollution and trash, plastic use, drought, lack of water, too much water, flooding, covering towns and villages and habited places, forest fires, logging and deforestation, and general increase in heat and temperatures increasing as well. So these are some of the issues connected with climate change. Can you think of any more issues to do with environmental issues or other issues related to climate change? If temperatures are rising on average globally, what impact does that have on the world, on our oceans, on our land, on animals, and so on? So if you've got more ideas, about impacts of climate change, please do put them in the chat. Okay, great. Sea levels are rising, exactly. Different types of pollutions. We've got electronic pollution, there's also noise pollution, all of these different things. Increasing ocean levels, sea level increase, sea level rises. Seasons are changing. Yeah, weather is becoming more unpredictable, more extreme. The human impacts, all of these things have impacts on us. Flooding results in more diseases, for example. Urbanisation may increase. Different impacts have impacts on like poverty and so on. Ozone depletion, melting ice at the poles, population, exactly. So there are all these different issues, things like ocean levels increasing, coral bleaching, endangered animals, smog, other types of pollution. We're wasting so much food and we're degrading natural habitats to get this food, and then we're not using all of the food, so it's not efficient. So all of these natural effects have impacts on humanity and our societies and our livelihoods. You can say about diseases, exactly, tsunamis, yeah, climate refugees. Might see more wars in the future for scarce resources. Okay, so there are lots of different aspects to climate and climate change and global warming. So here are some quotes to get you thinking. I don't know if you've seen any of these before, but some of these I think really speak to the issue and to what we need to do. Being compared to butchers of nature is very visceral. The image there, I think that's a really clear and succinct view about how we're treating the planet. This quote kind of gets at you from a financial perspective and putting that in perspective. What does this really mean? If we don't do anything, then it doesn't matter how wealthy you leave your children, they can't live because the planet cannot provide. Then there's a problem there. And this one is a call to action. We need to take action, and the more, we need our leaders to take action. So this week is a very important week, for example. So the more that we and our societies can demand more from our leaders, the better. How do you use quotes in the classroom? For example, sometimes I think they can be a good basis for discussion or debate. So you could use some of these quotes to kind of get students thinking about what changes might need to happen and so on. Yeah, taking advantage of nature's gifts, exactly. Okay, so we've talked about some of the impacts of climate change. Why should we talk about climate change in our classrooms to our students? Okay, so I'm just going to ask you to complete a quick question. So the question is, do you think there is enough focus on climate action in your school? Okay, I'm launching a poll. It might pop up on your screen if you're on a laptop or computer. If you're on a mobile device, you may need to go to the chat, and then you can click on yes, no, or I don't know, and submit your response to the poll, and then we'll be able to see what people think. Does your school have enough of a focus on climate action? So I'm going to let you find the poll, which, like I say, it should either pop up on your screen. If it doesn't pop up, then go to the chat and you can see the poll in the chat. So I've got a few responses. Actually, it's more positive so far than I would have thought. It's good to see that, slightly more people say that there is enough focus in their school than people who say there isn't. So we're still getting some more responses coming. Okay, so at the moment about half of you are saying there is enough focus in your school, which is great to see. Okay, We'll leave that poll active. You can click your response if you haven't done so. It's interesting to see that. What is interesting though is, you know, a good quarter of you are saying there isn't enough focus in your school, and more importantly, a quarter don't know. So if a school isn't being clear about what it's doing, that's something that maybe we need to think about. I saw some things in the chat pop up. Okay, some people are saying there are things happening in the school, but there's not enough. Okay, all right. So for me, there are lots of reasons why we should talk about it in school, and why we as teachers, particularly as English teachers, why we can talk about it. I'm going to show you some of my reasons. If you've got additional reasons why you think it's important, please put them in the chat, and we can come to those in a minute. So put your own reasons for teaching climate action in the chat. For me, I think it's, you know, it's a defining issue of our time, for our generation. As someone has said, you know, it's creating awareness about the consequences of humanity's actions. It's topical, it's always in the news. You can always find some news-related story connected with climate and the actions associated with it, whether it's about extreme weather or what people are or are not doing, or companies are or are not doing. It has so many connections to other subjects. You know, we can connect it to geography, we can connect it to IT and art. The students we're teaching today, they're going to be tomorrow's leaders, they're going to be tomorrow's change makers. So they need to be equipped with the knowledge and the skills to change the situation or to adapt and deal with the changed environment that we leave them. And I find that children want to know about these things. They want to learn about climate change. It's really important to them. And finally, one of the really important things is that it does get them to develop, you can really use this topic to develop critical thinking skills and other higher order thinking skills. So this is a really useful topic for that process, okay? Bhavna is saying that we need to educate ourselves as well. So this is a great way. When you teach, you can improve your own knowledge. So doing that is a great way to improve your own knowledge and educate yourself. Create awareness about water resources and all factors of nature, exactly. This is a nice point Ranjani is saying that, you know, school children in urban areas aren't in touch with the ground reality. They need to kind of perhaps be shown more of the world, you know, how important nature is to making their lives easy and how they can connect to the importance of keeping nature in equilibrium. Okay, so this is a little bit of a theory, why it's important, what it is, why it's important. Let's talk about how we talk about climate change. Now, the problem with climate change, it gets very overwhelming very quickly. I don't know if you feel the same, but for me, you know, when you read the news, it's unrelenting stories of how companies and individuals are not doing anything to change how they impact the environment, extreme weather and how that is affecting lives and environments and people's livelihoods. This is all very depressing. So how do we talk about this with children? So I think it depends on the age of children. So for very young children, maybe preschool children, it's about introducing them to nature, taking them out into the forest, taking them to the lake, to the beach, getting them to identify birds and animals, instilling a love of it, getting them to enjoy being out in nature. With primary students, we can start helping them make connections between personal choices and climate impact. So turning off the light. Do you need the AC or can the weather fan do? How can we reduce our carbon footprint? How much electricity do we need to use? So getting them to think about connections and how we all have an impact. And with secondary students, we can start thinking about how they can have an impact, how they can make change happen, and getting their input into climate action. Okay, it's involving community efforts. So earlier I showed you 6 photographs. Here's another photograph. What can you see in this photograph? This is a typical kind of climate change photograph of a particular animal in a particular environment. What is the animal and what is the situation? Okay, thank you, Madhavi. It's a polar bear. Okay, so we've got a few people saying it's a polar bear, and the problem is no ice. This bear should be in the North Pole. There should be lots of ice around it, but as we've already established, ice is melting in the North Pole, and so on. So it should live in a snowy environment. Okay, so this picture is one of those pictures which is a kind of a classic image of global warming. My question to you is this a good picture to show your students in your classroom? Would your students immediately understand this image? Is it relevant to them? Okay, so a lot of you are saying exactly this is a polar bear struggling in an environment with no ice caps. And I think these no's and a few yeses coming in are saying, yeah, maybe they wouldn't really get it. How easy is it for an Indian student in 30-degree heat to understand why a polar bear is important to their life? Okay, and same with the other images I showed. It's not really immediate. It's important. It's something which is happening and students may want to know about it, but can Indian students really connect to this picture? So I've got 2 key things about how to talk about climate change. The first thing is make it local. There are plenty of environmental challenges in India, so why not concentrate on those ones because they're immediate and they're relevant. So for example, here are some more photos. If anyone knows any of these animals, you can put them in the chat. But these 3 animals are all from India, and they have something in common. Okay, so we've got a vulture. This is called the Indian vulture. Exactly. And it has got number 2 correct. If you know what number 2 and if you know what number 1 and number 3 are, put them in the chat. But these 3 animals are indigenous to India. Red panda, exactly. Number 1 is a red panda. Number 2 is the Indian vulture. And number 3 is a lion-tailed macaque. So the Indian vulture you can find in central India, the red panda in the eastern Himalayas, and the macaque in the western Ghats. So these are all critically endangered animals in India. So you could do a lot of discussion about this with the students. What are these animals? Research them. What are their habitats? Why are they endangered? How can we survive? How can we support them? Support their populations? When you're talking about flooding, try and use pictures which are more relevant and depict Indian situations. So whether it's drought or forest fire or smog. So picture 4 is of flooding in Kerala. Picture 5 is of smog in Delhi. So try and be local. Think about the issues, the impacts which are relevant to India, and get the photos that you use there. So obviously, photographs are a great way to introduce topics. But just be local. My next tip is to be hopeful, okay? So don't just talk about the problems. If you talk about a problem, talk about the solution as well. So the issue is we're using too many fossil fuels. What is the solution? The problem is some materials don't degrade, or they don't biodegrade particularly well. So what materials should we avoid? And what should we do with things when we're finished using them? How can we avoid adding to the trash that we have? So these are the kinds of questions that you can use. Turning not just talking about the negative impacts of fossil fuels, but talking about the solutions. So, for example, we can avoid using fossil fuels by using renewable energy, solar energy, wind energy, water energy. What materials should we avoid? Someone said it earlier, we should particularly avoid things like plastic, which take a very, very long time, if ever, to biodegrade. And what should we do with things when we finish them? We've got an unknown user saying exactly recycling. Okay, so we can use them again so that we don't have to buy a new thing each time. We can avoid using plastic. So be local and be hopeful. Two key things there. So I'm going to give you some activities that you can use and adapt for your classrooms. But feel free to put in the chat any ideas that you have, or plans, activities or lesson plans that you've used and that have worked. Okay. Avoiding single-use plastic is really important. Recycling, reusing, reducing, really key phrase there. So here's the first one. I'm going to talk you through this. So this is I like this one. This is a very creative task. Okay. So what you can do is, with the students, brainstorm different types of environments in India, for example. Things like the beach, the forest, the mountains, okay, rivers, lakes. You can get them to think of as many different environments as they can. And then get them to think about which ones have they been to. Have they been to the beach? Have they been to the mountains? What did they like about going to the beach, going to the mountains, for example? So they think about the positive things that they remember from those places. Then get them to think about the environment that they saw. Did they see any environmental problems? Was the river dirty? Was there litter everywhere? Okay. So get them to think about some of the environmental problems that they might have encountered. And then get them to draw a picture of their favourite environment, and they can label the different parts of the environment, the ocean, the sand, my mum under an umbrella, and they can, if possible, maybe they can get some material from that environment to create more pictures. And then they're really eliciting a lot of vocabulary, getting them to enjoy nature. Okay. So with this kind of activity, what do you think the climate objective is with this kind of activity? I'll give you an example of another activity. So there's a teacher in Kerala called Sujit, and bird photography is his passion. And he runs the biodiversity program at his school, where they document biodiversity in the schoolyard. And they do that. So he and his students go and look at what nature is in the schoolyard. And they don't do it for assessment, they just do it for pleasure. And he says that, you know, it's had real benefits. One of the students told him that the first thing she does when she wakes up is listen to bird calls and tries to identify the different birds. Okay, so this is all about noticing. So this example of this teacher comes from our podcast, The Climate Connection. You can hear his story in episode 10. And this activity does the same thing. It encourages students to notice the environment, what they like about it, and what might be the problems, and how they can think, how they can change them. So this one isn't, so that's a nice activity, and it's probably more suited to younger students, maybe at the primary level. Here's another activity. Okay, you all need to pay attention now. So I'm going to read you a text, but I'm going to leave gaps. Okay, so I want you to type the word that is missing. Okay, so you need to look at the picture, and I want you to type the word that I need to say next. Okay, so this photo shows two what? This photo shows two birds. These birds are called eagle, peregrines. Okay, some different answers here. Yeah, these birds are called flamingos. The big flamingo is the mother. The small flamingo is the exactly, the small flamingo is the baby. A baby bird is called a chick. Okay, excellent. The mother has two long pink Exactly. The mother has two long pink legs and she has pink feathers too. The baby has white. Okay. So the mother has she has pink feathers too. The baby has white feathers, not fur, feathers. The mother's beak is big. It's white, orange, and black. The baby's beak is pink. Flamingos what can flamingos do? So flamingos can fly, but they can't jump. I love this photo. Flamingos can stand on one leg, that's very true. Flamingos can fly, they can migrate, they can walk, they can hop, but they can't jump. Thank you, Zarina. Yeah. And flamingos are beautiful. Okay, that's my short text. So I read you a little text. You had to give me the answers. You put them in chat in a classroom. You could get them to shout out the answers. So in the first stage, you introduce the picture, you show them the picture, you give them a model text, you elicit the language, then you could get them to choose a different animal pair, a different mother and baby. So they choose their different animal pair, mother and baby animals, and then they have two pieces of card. On one piece, they draw the picture of the mother and baby animal. On the second card, they write a very similar text. They can use the model you have given them about their mother and baby pair. Okay, and then you can play a matching game. You can do it in different ways in the classroom. If you get all of the students to put together their picture and their text, then you can play lots of different matching games. Okay. Now this is the kind of activity which you can extend in lots of different ways. So already we've introduced vocabulary for English in terms of about the animals, but to introduce and we're introducing them to nature, instilling a love of nature. So that's important for climate. But to go one step further, we can encourage the students to research the animals. They can think about how endangered the animal is. They're looking at tigers and house cats. They're going to find very different scales of endangeredness. And then in the classroom, you can rank them. You could get them to do presentations on the animals that they found, how endangered they are, is their habitat safe, what can people do to help this animal survive. So you can increase the challenge, you can reduce the challenge in different ways. What kind of age group would this be useful for, do you think? Maybe primary? 10 to 12 years? Yeah. I think it depends, the first 3 stages could be done at upper primary maybe, If you want them to go away and do some research, maybe it's more secondary. Okay, so you can adapt it for different ways. Yes, I think the consensus is about 10. I don't know if people 10-year-olds, 11, 12-year-olds exactly. I would probably say more secondary if you include the research and the presentation stages. Okay. Here's an activity which I really like. Okay, so what do you think this activity is going to be about? Look at the picture. Can you make any predictions about this activity? Robots. Not about robots, something a bit aliens, exactly, Ranjani's on it. Aliens, it's a spaceship, exactly. So this is a really nice activity. I was inspired by one of the podcasts, which I'll tell you more about later. So in this one, what you do is you set the scene first of all. The scene is friendly is important, friendly aliens in their spaceship or UFO have come to Earth. They're good aliens, we want them to stay, but the aliens must make a decision. Do they want to stay on Earth or do they want to go and find another planet to stay on? So the students pretend to be the aliens and they look at all the problems on Earth and they think about and they discuss them. What are the problems on Earth? Is Earth making any attempts to solve those problems? And then the aliens have to make a decision. So the students have done some research with the problems, and then they come together and they have a discussion and a debate. Will they stay and make Earth better, help solve the problems, or will they go off and look for another planet? Okay. So what you can also do then is get them to create a play, and they can perform the play, or you could leave it as an activity where they create a poster or a story, for example, a role play, exactly as Sarah was saying there. So I think this is a really fun and creative activity, but it also gets them to practice objective thinking. They have to be not human, they have to look at the Earth through objective eyes and think about what can we do to make it a better place. And this is taken from a project in the Middle East. And what they did was they performed these plays on Zoom during COVID. And there's a really nice play online which you can look at. It's the last link here. So here are 3 activities which I think are really nice ways of introducing the topic, introducing them to nature and the problems and the solutions, getting them to think of the solutions at the same time. Again, be local and be hopeful. So this 3rd activity, what kind of class range do you think this would work for? Would this work with your students? What classes do you think it would work for? Yeah, I think it's probably more likely to be higher level at secondary classes. You might get strong senior primary students able to engage in this, but it's probably more suited to middle and secondary, I would say, but you can definitely adapt it in different ways. And I think it's a really nice creative task. Okay, last activity. What can you see on the right here? What is, I know you can't read it, that's not a problem, but what does it look like? This picture on the right, what do you call these types of posters? Have you seen this kind of poster or image before? Awareness posters, yeah. So this is a kind of poster where it's got a lot of information on one topic, okay? And it's raising awareness exactly. This one is talking about air pollution in India. Okay, so one person has mentioned the word infographic. Okay, got a couple more people saying infographic now, exactly. So you may have seen infographics for different topics. They're a great visual representation of problem or issue or a success. You know, they can be about any topic. This one's about air pollution in India. It's giving the facts. So this project, this activity is all about creating an infographic. So the students can brainstorm local issues. They can choose other issues, but again, it's better if they're thinking about their local environment. Then they can select, in small groups, they can select one local issue and do some research, get the facts, get the figures. Great opportunity to improve their digital literacy. If you want to learn more about digital literacy, we've got a webinar in December about that. Get them to improve, get them to research the facts, get them to create an infographic, be creative using design tools. And then what you could do, I mean, this is an extra step, if you can they share their infographics on social media, for schools, social media? Can you put on an exhibition for parents or other students with their infographics? Because infographics are meant to be very shareable through social media. And exactly, they build awareness. Okay, so this kind of activity is great, not just for the discussion and research, but students are developing skills like persuasion, dealing with data. These kinds of skills are useful for higher education and IELTS, so really important. Okay, so that's the third activity there. Okay, okay. So I've given you 3 activities. How do you teach climate action? Have you taught climate issues in your classroom? How do you do that? Have you got any activities that you would like to share with us? I'm going to, so lots of discussion, that's great. I'm going to allow microphones to be unmuted so that people, if you want to unmute yourself, you can tell us if you've got an activity that really worked. You can put your hand up and I will allow you to unmute, and then you can tell us about an activity about climate change that really worked in your classroom. Okay. So Anita, Anita, do you want to unmute yourself? Tell us about an activity or lesson that worked for you.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving me this chance. Good afternoon, everyone. We did a small activity that I took 2 glasses of water, and that glasses were transparent, and in one glass it was clean and pure water, and then in second glass I added little bit of dirt, salt, means dirt and soil and everything, and then I asked them which water would you like to prefer to drink. So they told that clean water. Then I asked why, and like this discussion going on, then we just explained them that we are seeing everyone is throwing dirt everywhere, we are not using dustbin, and we are destroying our rivers and seas. That we should not do. If we will do all the time, then how we will get clean and neat and clean water to drink? Like this, we have discussed all these things in the class.
That's wonderful, Anita. I like how you brought it into the classroom. You've got a really visual thing that students can see, the dirty water, the clean water, and you're talking about the problems, but also talking about the solutions. How do we avoid creating dirty rivers? Exactly. So that's really nice. Thank you for sharing, Anita.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Does anyone else have any activity or lesson that they would like to share? I can see a couple of hands up. I think there was one before. Nina, do you have an activity that you could share? You can unmute yourself if you have anything. Or Poonam? Okay. Well, if anyone's got any other activities or lessons that they delivered in about climate, that would be great to hear them. You can put them in the chat as well. Let me just, oh, sorry, I missed out on the chat by going to that. So people are talking about discussions, puppet shows. Okay, that's great. Exactly. Research and discussion. Giving them projects, exactly. So you can create some really nice projects which go over several classes, and that's really important. It shouldn't be a one-off thing, it should be over time. Research, exactly. Wonderful, Anita. Thank you, Anita. Okay. Survey of local issues, exactly. Find the reason, list out the solutions, exactly. And the more you can engage the students, getting them to think of the solutions themselves, That's really great. You can see some more hands up. Let me see who's there. Okay, Anubhav, do you want to unmute yourself and tell us your suggestion, your activity?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So this was in grade 10th while I was teaching about waste management. So we were supposed to do waste audit. The idea was to do waste audit, and the impact that we were discussing of the climatic impact, that is incineration and garbage throwing in the environment in the local community. And we connected both the topics, as there are certain schools in Delhi that have garbage bins placed in front of the school. So that was our issue, that how these garbages help like put an impact on the climate, as well as what are their actions, how they can reduce the waste generation and the impact.
That's a really nice idea. And how did the students enjoy doing that? Did they learn from it? I imagine the students must have really enjoyed kind of doing that kind of practical activity, and these kinds of audits, the waste audit is a really good. Another one that occurs to me is like doing a kind of photography exercise where they go out and they record images of places which are unclean or are polluted in their environment. Great, okay, thank you very much. Some really nice ideas there, and I saw some more come up in the chat. Well, find someone who, yeah, experiments are great, so you can tie in science as well. Do find someone who has a reusable bottle, has something. That's a really nice activity as well. Finding positive things, someone who's taking a role to make good personal choices, using reusable bottles, something homegrown in lunchbox, short plays, skits, and so on. Exactly. Okay. I think we will go back to. Okay. So what I would say is, there are lots of resources out there so that you can create, so that you can take lessons which are ready made, take activities which are ready made. I'm going to give you some websites for that later on. But you can also make your own lessons from authentic materials. You can use authentic materials to introduce new vocabulary and generate discussion. You've told me some of the great activities you've already used. If you're struggling for ideas, you can start with some of these interesting stories that you can find on the internet. These slides will be available within the next 2 weeks. So I think you need to check back after Diwali, but after Diwali, you'll be able to find the slides and the recording on our website, and you can look at these different stories and maybe use them. What I would say is, if you've got any great lessons or great activities that you've already used or that you create, please do send them to us at our address, teachenglish.india@britishcouncil.org. Because we may, if we get enough good ones, we might think about creating some kind of booklet that we can use and share with teachers in India. Okay, so some of these stories are quite interesting. Oh, and thank you for sharing more ideas, Pavna. So some positive reads as well. So some of these are some of these are positive, some are not so positive. Remember has written a blog on electronic pollution, so that sounds really interesting, Remember, that's really good. If you feel like you want to, please do share the link in the chat so that everyone can go and read the blog. That would be really, really nice. In a minute, I'm going to come to questions. But before I do, I want to give you a little summary. So I mentioned that this week is a really important week for the environment because global leaders are meeting to discuss the actions that they can and should take. But you might be aware of things like World Earth Day or World Environment Day. These days are often marked in lots of different ways and they raise awareness, but it's really important that we don't just do climate on 1 or 2 days of the year. It needs to be integrated, okay? Try every lesson or so, try and make reference to the climate, how important it is to take action and what we need to do. You can be such a role model, okay? Someone has already mentioned you lights and fans after class, not copying so much on paper. When you do copy too much, make sure pieces of paper are recycled. Students can use them for other things. So you can model really positive actions for your students and tell them what actions you're taking. And the two key ways of talking about climate change I mentioned before, stay hopeful and be local. Okay, this is the really important thing to connect with students. Okay, so here are some useful resources. Right now, you can join our, thank you for the blog. Right now, you can join our massive online course, massive open online course to learn more about climate action in language education. So you can click on the link to register for this free online course. It's a 4-week course, and you'll be connected with teachers around the world, and you'll learn lots of things about how to integrate climate action into your teaching. We'll put the link. Thank you, Judith has put the link into the chat. So please do click on the link and register. We'll put it at the end as well so that you can find it easily. But it's a free course. We highly recommend it. It was put on, some of you may have done the course earlier in the year. It was very successful, so we're running it again, and we want to improve awareness. My last slide has more resources. Again, we will share these slides within after Diwali, so you'll be able to come back to the slides and click on all the useful links. I want to mention in particular the podcast. I got a lot of my ideas from this podcast. The podcast is called The Climate Connection, and in it we discuss climate and language education. So it's really relevant for teachers of English. Each episode has show notes and a transcript, so you can understand what is happening in each episode, and you can develop your own English language skills at the same time. So it's a really good, useful link. So I'm going to close my session, my presentation, but we've got some time for questions. So if you've got any questions, please do put your hand up. Questions or ideas, okay? So let's go.